Hello, everypony. Today, we're going to be talking about the Houstonification of America's cities. In this video, I'm going to be pretty negative to America's highway systems and the Federal Aid Highway Act, but that doesn't mean I'm against them. I like cars, I like driving around, but I don't like how you don't have a choice in the United States if you want to drive or not. And I'm going to go all into that in this video. This is St. Louis before the popularization of the automobile. This is St. Louis after. This is Kansas City before, and this is Kansas City after the popularization of the automobile. This is Atlanta before, and this is Atlanta after the Federal Aid Highway Act. So what the hell happened here, right? Why are these skylines less pleasant to look at? Why is there a giant highway in all of these photos? Why does nobody live in St. Louis anymore? Automobile production in America begins around 1893. Mass production soon follows this, and by 1910, almost 500,000 cars are produced in the United States. With all of this production, we see the rise of companies like Ford, Dodge, and GMC. And the leaders of these companies aren't taking a backseat in politics. William Durant was considered a lifelong Republican, although not super involved with the party. Henry Ford bounced between Democrats and Republicans before ultimately deciding that he was a Nazi. John Dodge was super involved with the Republican Party of Michigan and donated quite a bit of money to him. In fact, he most likely wouldn't have been a big influence in the Republican Party there whatsoever without his money. Most people didn't like his character whatsoever. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the president who actually passed the Federal Aid Highway Act, had most of his money funded by Clifford Roberts, someone who made a majority of his money on working in and investing in the oil industry. So what, right? So what? Who cares? The 1950s Federal Aid Highway Act made things more accessible in America, more travelable, right? That's a good thing. Except when you look at every detail of it and how St. Louis as a city died because of it. St. Louis was a city that relied pretty heavily on river transport through the city, which became very irrelevant after cars came out. Now within cities, you have issues like traffic and finding parking and stuff like that. So people start leaving the city towards suburbs, which at the time were cheaper. So now everybody starts leaving city centers to live in suburbs, which affected St. Louis pretty heavily. St. Louis had about 900,000 people living there before 1950 when the Federal Aid Highway Act passed. Now there's about 300,000 residents as of today. This wasn't unique to St. Louis either. All across America, you saw people leaving the city to live in the suburbs instead. A great example is Atlanta. Atlanta has about the 8th largest metropolitan area in the United States, yet only 500,000 people actually live within its city limits, which is pretty small. Not long after the 1950 Federal Aid Highway Act comes zoning laws and parking minimums. That means parking requirements if you want to open new buildings or develop new areas, stuff like that. It also, with the zoning laws, it means you can't put a convenience store in a suburb so that you could walk down the sidewalk and buy stuff you need to. Now you have to get in your car and actually drive to a more densely populated area. What happens when everybody's driving to a more densely populated area to get their groceries? Well, they have huge traffic issues. You have dealt with traffic in your life. Everybody in America, whether you live in a small town or a big city, deals with an insane amount of traffic, more than we should. Not only do you have to deal with traffic, whether you're living in a small city or whether you're living in a small town or a large city, we also are dealing with a lot of traffic death because it's an inherently dangerous thing to do. About 40,000 people die yearly in the United States because of this. Not to mention 2.5 million people get injured just from car accidents. In some cities that might have a little train or bus infrastructure, you can get around without a car. I don't really have to drive very much where I live in Atlanta. If you live in somewhere like Houston or any of the suburbs that are populated with millions of people outside of Atlanta, you will have to drive your car. And you will have to wait in traffic. So what do we even do? Everybody's required to drive their car. We're all very reliant on it. It's not inherently positive all the time. What do we actually do to solve these issues? Well, for starters, to make the skylines look a little bit better, like they did in the beginning of the video before the Federal Aid Highway Act, we could bury highways. Boston recently buried Highway I-93 and I-90 which was super positive. It looks way better now. All data suggests that adding more lanes to a highway does not reduce traffic at all, but what does reduce traffic is adding more bus lines or bike lanes. And for larger cities, trains are infinitely safer and faster if there's a lot of traffic going on. All of those changes would mean less traffic death, less traffic injury, and less traffic, period. I think we need to get rid of ridiculous zoning laws. If someone wants to build a convenience store in a suburb, I think they should be allowed to. I think that would make the quality of life much better in that neighborhood. We definitely need to get rid of parking minimums. If somebody wants to build that convenience store, they shouldn't have to build a huge parking lot right beside it. People should just be able to walk up to it. I know these are little small changes, but they'd make such a huge difference. This nation is getting gutted by car infrastructure and car development, and it destroys me when we add another lane to a highway and the highway's still trafficy. How many millions are they wasting on this car infrastructure that they could be using to develop train lines instead? It's insane. This was kind of a short, not super developed or in detail video, but it's kind of a simple issue of traffic and traffic death resolved by make me not have to drive my car, pretty much. So I guess that's it, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.